The reincarnated shape-shifting queen of Atlantis once told me the snake in the Garden of Eden wasn't Satan. So, here we are. While the opener sounds insane and bordering on heresy, it's nevertheless true. I dated a girl who thought she was reincarnated royalty, but as I got older and was smart enough to end that relationship, I became a Christian and actually decided to read that pesky Bible. And I can tell you, I'm convinced Satan was there in the garden playing fast and loose with God's creation. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do that now. Genesis 3 introduces a talking serpent, but never explicitly names who the serpent is. The text simply calls it the most crafty of all the wild animals that the Lord God had made. From its cunning speech and actions, however, we can infer more about this creature. The serpent speaks intelligently, misquotes God's commands, and tempts Eve with deceit. In fact, it directly lies to Eve and contradicts God by saying, "You will not surely die," and adds that God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. These statements are false or misleading. God had warned Adam and Eve that eating the forbidden fruit would lead to death. You can see Genesis 2:17. But the serpent denies it. The serpent also falsely suggests that God is hiding something good, becoming like God, from Adam and Eve. In other words, the serpent misrepresents God's words to deceive the first humans. Its eagerness to twist God's commands shows its deceptive nature. The serpent's deceptive character is highlighted by its cunning and craftiness. Genesis 3:1 describes it as more crafty or subtle than any other beast of the field. In the New International Version, it even says most cunning. These translations emphasize that the serpent is uniquely shrewd and deceptive, and the Hebrew words suggest slyness and trickery. In practical terms, this means the serpent was an unusually clever creature, able to argue with Eve about spiritual matters. The fact that a creature would debate theology and doctrine, what did God really say, can you become like God, indicates it's more than a normal animal. Its persuasive speech and knowledge of God's commands suggests age and intelligence beyond a mere serpent, implying it has existed long enough to know God's purposes. And as we've already talked about, most importantly, the serpent lies. Immediately after denying death, it assures Eve God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. This is a half-truth at best. After Adam and Eve eat, their eyes indeed open, they realize their nakedness, and they gain knowledge of good and evil, but it comes through disobedience and death, not some intended gift from God. The serpent's promise to Eve is a misrepresentation. It frames disobedience as empowerment. In modern terms, the serpent is playing on Eve's curiosity and pride. It implies God is afraid of humans becoming godlike, but in fact, no such fear motivated God. He's God, so what does he have to fear from man? He wanted to protect them from the consequences of sin. Thus, the serpent's words are a calculated lie and distortion of God's truth. Moreover, the serpent's approach relies on sowing doubt about God's command. It questions, did God really say, "You shall not eat of any tree in the garden"? By raising the question, it subtly plants the idea that Eve and Adam misunderstood or misremembered God's words. This tactic of mixing truth with doubt is very deceptive, and it shows the serpent's craft. It knows God's original command from Genesis 2, but twists it to ensnare Eve. Taken together, these attributes, cunning intelligence, persuasive speech, and blatant lying, paint the serpent as a deceptive, rebellious being. Genesis doesn't state its identity, but gives clues to its nature. It acts as an opponent to God's will, tempted humans, and misrepresented divine truth. The serpent's actions show it is not neutral or innocent. It is actively working against God's purpose for humanity. Now, the devil is present in other parts of the Old Testament, but it's in the New Testament where Satan seems to want to take a lot of the spotlight. And it's here where we get some very interesting descriptions. Jesus explicitly identifies the devil as a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. Notice the parallels. The serpent in Eden lied to Eve in Genesis. Jesus calls Satan a liar from the beginning. The question then becomes, what does Jesus mean by "from the beginning"? Maybe I'm a simple man, but it could be that Jesus is referencing the first line uttered in the Bible, "in the beginning." By linking the beginning, or fall in Eden, with this being's nature as a liar, he effectively equates the deceiver of Genesis with Satan. After all, the devil's native tongue is lying. He speaks falsehood as if it were his mother tongue. This matches exactly what we see in Genesis 3. The serpent never once tells Eve the truth about God's command or consequences of disobedience. Instead, it twists God's words. It speaks smoothly and convincingly to Eve, exactly as if lying were natural to it. The consistency between Genesis and John is striking. Both describe the same character trait: constant deception. Where Genesis shows the serpent telling Eve, "You will not surely die," John 8:44 tells us lying is the devil's modus operandi. And Jesus also says, "You are of your father the devil," to those who lie, making it clear that lying is the devil's doing. In short, the New Testament voice identifies a being whose nature is deceitful from the start, precisely matching the Edenic serpent. Another New Testament hint is the notion of rebellion against the Almighty. The devil is described as an arch enemy of God, and although not explicitly named in Genesis 3, the serpent's introduction of sin can only be described as an act of rebellion against the Creator's command. The serpent's work is active opposition to God, tempting humans to break God's law. This rebellious tendency aligns with other biblical depictions of Satan as the ultimate antagonist of God. We see the serpent quoting, "God said, 'You shall not eat,' but again clearly trying to undermine God's authority. Therefore, the New Testament image of Satan as the rebel and the liar fits perfectly with the serpent's role in Genesis. And as a final note, just as the devil is a murderer from the beginning, the serpent's lie introduced sin and death into the world. Before we keep going, if you find biblical detective work like this interesting, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I'm no Sherlock Holmes, but I'd say I'm pretty good. Now, let's get back to the video. The book of Revelation explicitly ties these strands together with vivid imagery. Revelation 12:9 calls Satan the great dragon, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan. And later, Revelation 20 verse 2 likewise calls him the ancient serpent who is the devil or Satan. These passages make the identification explicit. The dragon, the symbol for Satan, is the very same ancient serpent of Eden. Revelation's language is intentionally connecting back to Genesis. Calling Satan the ancient serpent ties him back to the very first book. The context in Revelation is end times conflict, but it explicitly acknowledges the historical origin. The deceiver dragging war to earth is that ancient serpent who duped our first parents. In other words, the devil underlies the Genesis account. By weight of Revelation's testimony, the one who tempted Eve is none other than Satan himself. But this is hardly a new phenomenon. Early Christian writers consistently affirmed the identity of the serpent with the devil, echoing the biblical witness. For example, Justin Martyr in the 2nd century writes, "The prince of the wicked spirits is called the serpent, and Satan and the devil." Likewise, Theophilus of Antioch in the late 2nd century explicitly identifies the serpent who deceived Eve as the wicked demon, who also is called Satan, and says he then spoke to her through the serpent. These authorities saw no contradiction in equating the serpent with the devil. They treated the serpent as a tool or embodiment of Satan himself. Their commentaries emphasize that Genesis 3 was an act of demonic temptation, not just an encounter with an animal. Even Theodoret of Cyrus in the 5th century observes that Jesus' words in the Gospels, "You are of your father the devil, he was a murderer from the beginning," make clear that the devil spoke to Eve through the serpent. In other words, the Church Fathers read the New Testament affirmation of Satan's character back into Genesis. This tradition of interpretation builds on the scriptural hints and underlines the point. The deceiver in the garden has always been understood by faithful teachers as Satan himself. Scripture itself consistently portrays the Edenic serpent as none other than Satan. The serpent's attributes and actions in Genesis, extraordinary cunning, complete dishonesty, direct opposition to God's will, match exactly the biblical portrait of the devil. In Genesis 3, the text lays the groundwork without naming names, showing a crafty liar tempting humanity. The New Testament later identifies Satan as a liar from the beginning and speaks of his rebellion. Finally, Revelation explicitly calls Satan that ancient serpent, linking him back to Genesis. No part of the Bible contradicts this identification. On the contrary, every relevant passage lines up. The serpent is a deceiver. Jesus calls Satan father of lies. Revelation equates the dragon with the serpent. Genesis shows us the creature's cunning and deceit. The New Testament calls the devil a liar from the start. Revelation confirms him as the ancient serpent. No additional mythology or tradition is needed. The scriptures, taken together, make the connection plain. Now, I could be wrong, and if you think I am, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell. God bless you guys, and be excellent to each other.